Hey, welcome back. This is Dios here with the Pulse Advantage podcast. And in this episode today, we're going to talk about the different type of private jets that are out there for you to purchase, charter, or use for your own personal matter out there in the world. So stay tuned, watch to the very end to learn all about the different type of jets. Yeah, so welcome back. This is Dio Snetti Pellegrin here, VP of Marketing and Sales with Pulse Aviation. Now I'm with my business partner,
Daniel Rios, CEO of Pulse Aviation.
And welcome back. Again, in this episode, we're going to talk about the different types of private jets. So, Daniel, let's talk about it. I mean, there's all sorts of different jets, right? I mean, you got light, you got middle, ultra, long range, all this stuff. Tell us about all the different type of jets that are out there in the market for people to use.
Okay, let's start with the first class of jets. We call them very light jets in that category. You got jets like the Embraer Phenom 100, your Cessna Citation Mustangs, and they go on and on. And what these planes do is open up thousands of airports across where bigger jets aren't accessible. So, typically like capacity for these jets are like 4 to 6 passenger range, limited amenities. So that's why they're not favored, because the amenities are limited. Some have lavs, some don't. The newer models do. That's something they emphasize. And those typically range about 1,000 miles, give or take, a couple hundred miles here and there. But the biggest thing is the shorter runways. They're agile, they're high speed, and they're small airport accessible. Right. So the typical jets can't get into like a 4,000 foot runway. These planes are very capable for it.
Yeah. So these light jets are probably for your either a small business, small enterprise, or a person who just travels a quick city hops.
Yep. 1 or 2 people, they want to get somewhere A to B as quick as they can, so they'll find the local airport that's closest to wherever they're going, and that's what these planes provide.
Gotcha. Okay. And what's the next class from there?
Then we go into light business jets.
Okay.
Light business jets are a little more popular. Learjet 45s, you name it, Phenom 300s. You got, the Falcon 10s, which are more phasing out. You still see them around. Cessna Citations, the CJ1s through the 4s. We got Cessna Bravos, the Encores, the XLs. These planes are typically the 5 to 6 passenger ranges. They're very comfortable in seating. I've flown in them a couple of times, and they're very nice planes. Different category of this size of jet. You get a little more. You get more nice reclining seats. You get more comfort. You get better air conditioning systems. Maybe you give or take the model, you'll get some amenities like you got your videos. You can watch movies. Some wireless entertainment, stuff like that. And these Rangers are now, they start to get into a category more accessible, like let's use continental US for example, where you start getting into the 15 nautical mile range.
1,500, right?
Yeah, 1,500,
yeah.
Correction. Yeah, 1,500 nautical mile. And in that, you're typically talking about a flight range between like 2.5 to maybe 3.5 hours. And again, they can land on short runways.
Nice.
Access to a lot of less busier airports. That's a big thing too with a lot of these travelers. They want in and out. They don't want to be, taxiing and waiting on hold and in a line 10 minutes. And these planes range again in the 4 to 475 mile range in speed. So yeah, they're very very popular size jet.
Absolutely. So we've covered the light business class, and then what comes in there after that?
So then you're looking at mid-size jets, and this category is extremely popular.
Mm-hmm. This is where the real money. This is when you start to.
These are the guys that are more range to get coast to coast faster, stuff like that. And you're talking, Embraer Legacies. You're talking Learjet 60, the bigger size Learjets. You're talking Falcon 50s. You're talking Hawkers. You're talking that category of plane.
Yeah,
and these tend to be 5 to 10 passenger category. Some with little mods, maybe 11 passenger. Pressurized cabin, so they can get higher, get up higher. Obviously, the planes are more efficient at higher altitudes, less fuel burn, lowers your operating costs, stuff like that. This is also where you get into, we should have harped on this before, where this category of plane is 2 pilots are going to be required. You rarely see a single pilot rated plane. So if you're thinking about buying these things, two pilots. Mm-hmm. Where the Phenom 300 stuff like that are a single pilot rated plane. That was something very important to harp on the last class I should have brought up. But again, these Rangers now you're talking getting up to the 3,000 mile range. So now you're talking New York to pretty much LA, 5 hours of flying. You're talking a lot more amenities. Same thing, they can still land on smaller runways, which gives them access to thousands of airports across the U.S. And some of them even rated to go transcontinental. So some of these things can go over and fly over the ocean. Once one quick fuel stop and they're over the ocean. Same thing, these cruise speeds start to generally go up into the, I want to say 400s, into the, maybe some of them in a performance-wise can get into the 500s and really get cruising up at altitude.
Gotcha. Okay. So we covered light. We went to the mid-sized business. What comes after the mid-sized business jets?
We're talking the ones we see on the internet. This super mid-size. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of private jets. Now you're talking the Falcon 2000s, the 900s. You're talking Gulfstreams. You're talking Challenger 300s, Hawkers. Again, Hawkers 4000 is another model called the Hawker 4000. Not a very popular jet though, but they're out there. And now this starts to really open the game of private jets, where you're talking a class of 8 passengers up to, again, with modifications, up to 12 passengers in a plane, depending on the setup in the plane. A lot more luxury. Seats are bigger, wider, more padded, reclining. Some of these things have flat out turned into beds. It's just enough room in these cabins to do this now.
Yeah, the lavatory, I'm sure, is probably a lot
more. You got a lot
nicer.
more elbow room in there. You got a lot more elbow room, some more thinking time in those things. You got a lot more room for those. And now you're talking ranges. Your non-stop ranges are going way up. Now you're starting getting into the 3,400 to 3,700 mile category. So now that opens up, like say again, continental U.S. coast to coast nonstop, which obviously all these business travelers and private jet travelers on the personal trips, they want that range because they don't want to be stopping.
Yeah.
Now cruise speeds on these things get up to about 590 miles an hour.
Wow.
So these things can really get going when they're up at altitude.
That's what, like 0.7 Mach?
Yeah, you're in that range.
0.7 Mach.
Yeah,
for those of you who are thinking about Mach speeds and things like that.
Yeah,
so.
if you want to get really technical, some of these jets can get up there.
Yeah.
When they're up at altitude, 40,000 and up, these things start to cook across the countries, across the oceans. And then, and that's really what, that's the name of the game is, not bigger to flaunt, but bigger for accessibility, luxury, and range. That's the biggest thing, and efficiency.
Right, because absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, we talked about 3-4 classes now. And the difference is size, so there's a convenience and comfort. How cramped you are. Also, height-wise.
Height's a big thing.
Right, in light jets, you're not going to stand up. There's no standing up unless if you're, Kevin
tall.
Hart. If you're Kevin Hart.
Sorry, Kevin Hart.
Sorry, Kevin Hart. But you're likely not going to stand up in the first 2-3 classes of jets. But now once you start getting into the business, mid-class business, you really can start standing up 6 feet, 6 feet 2 inches, 6 feet 3 inches. So.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And then this episode is brought to you by Pulse Aviation. Your journey to unparalleled aviation excellence begins with Pulse Aviation. Whether you're seeking to acquire the perfect private aircraft, ensuring its airworthiness with a comprehensive pre-buy inspection, or maintaining peak performance, Pulse Aviation delivers unmatched expertise and personalized service. Our certified technicians and experienced sales professionals are dedicated to exceeding your expectations. From sourcing the ideal aircraft to ensuring its long-term reliability, we handle every detail with precision and care. We understand that your time is valuable. That's why we offer seamless, efficient solutions tailored to your unique needs. Contact Pulse Aviation today. Send us an email at info@pulseaviation.com to learn how we can elevate your aviation experience. And now back to the show. So we've covered mid-sized business. From mid-sized business, what would be the next one from there?
Now you got your heavies. Now you're talking globals. You're talking Falcon 7X. You're talking, your Gulfstream series, the G500s, up to what would they categorize? Maybe the G650s, up to 650s. Excluding the ER model, which is extended range model.
Okay.
And now you're talking the category of 10 to 18 passengers. Now you're really getting into, if you got a large team in your business and you got to move a lot of people, these are where these become really popular. These are where, a lot more luxury, a lot more accessibility in what we call the IFE systems, which is that passenger comfort where meetings get held, the technology can, the Wi-Fi can handle it. It's really a moving office is what these things really become for a large amount of teams. Super customizable. I mean, there's some that won't have bedrooms in it. Some have bedrooms. Some have showers. Some don't have showers. I mean, these things become real tools in the business. And now you're talking a category of jet that is operating at 6,000 plus miles. So these things are high extended range planes. International scale, you think about it, you're going nonstop. I mean, the ranges you can go, New York to France, New York to pretty much Spain, anywhere you want to go, and you're not even thinking about stopping.
Like London, you probably go London, France to Dubai, UAE.
Yeah, you're going pretty far on these things, and depending on the weather conditions also, wind plays a factor. But yeah, these things now you're talking again. Now you're starting to get to close to the 600-mile range in miles per hour in speed. So these things really cook when they get up to altitude.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when we talk about the ultra business class, I mean, this is very, very small population. I mean, the private jet industry is a small population in total in itself, but when we start talking about the ultra business, I mean, that's a very select few of people who fly those.
That is the top 1%.
Yes.
These are like, you're talking,
You're Elon
not
Musk.
to get political, Donald Trump,
right.
You get into a lot of Saudis, with the A380s and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another echelon of wealthy and usability of aircraft. It is popular too amongst businesses like the Boeing business jet. These things hold 20 plus passengers. You think about it, you have a large executive C-suite team, and these planes are capable of moving a lot of people. And if you then take the cost into effect, it's cheaper with these planes to move a large amount of people versus individual jets. So that's why a lot of these companies opt for these size of private jets.
And now that we've covered, those are basically the 4 or 5 different jets that are out there for private aviation. We'll touch base. I mean, we'll have other episodes. We'll talk a little bit about pricing for these. But where would you say light jets? First class. You're looking what? Maybe, I mean, you can find some very old used $500,000 up to.
Yeah, you can find some older models, but the factors come into parts availability, maintenance costs. Because then you got to factor that in. Costs are going to go through the roof.
Right.
You got part scarcity. That affects everything in maintenance. Getting parts. Downtimes are way longer. I've heard of stories planes sitting in hangars for 6 months. Because you just can't get parts. They got to be remanufactured. So that's always a thing to take into fact, right? It's not really the final dollar amount of these jets. It's age, parts accessibility, what the maintenance costs. Again, like we talked in a previous episode, what's your budget for an operational cost of the year? Yeah, you may get a jet cheaper, but in the long run, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And they're going to break a lot more. So yeah, these categories, people outside of the world of private jets just kind of jaw drop when they see these prices. But yeah, there's really, if you're in the echelon of owning a private jet as a private owner or business, again, not to really harp on money of these jets, but there's brackets for everything, right? Just like the car categories. Where you can get a good solid, let's just use one of my favorites, a Falcon 50. You can get a very nice Falcon 50 from anywhere from like the $3 million to really nice one, about $7 million. Right. And that gets you a plane that I'll take you coast to coast.
Right. And that's a good mid-sized business class. I mean,
very
nice
reliable.
Plane, very reliable. Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah, and again, the price of the planes, it's just one thing. We've covered it in other videos and previous videos, and we'll cover it in future videos as well, because that is the misconception ultimately in the private aviation world is cost. And, there's a dollar amount to acquiring the plane, but as we know, there's a bigger dollar amount in the maintenance, in the storing it and keeping fuel of the plane. So it really, on an annual basis, your fixed costs and your variable costs at some point is going to overcome the initial purchase price.
And it depends how you use them too. And that's not to really go dive because it's not the category for it, but yeah, it's the use of the plane too. If you're flying heavy, yes, you're expensive. Your budget's going to be high. If you're not, what we call in maintenance hangar queens, basically they sit in a hangar, they're shiny, and they, maybe they'll fly 100 hours a year.
Right.
So yeah, you still have your associated costs with doing that, but it's substantially lower.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So that's it for this episode, folks. That covers basically the jets. We really want to take some time in this episode to talk about each individual one and give you an understanding of the different classes of private jets that are out there. So at this point, we appreciate you watching this. Touch here or right somewhere on the screen, you're going to see the next video. Watch this next video. Is going to talk more about private aviation. And with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.